right. Anyway, there is something that everybody was going to ask me about, or ask us to talk about this week, which was the debut of FTR on AEW. This is starting to get alphabet soup. I didn't watch this show because I believe I clearly, succinctly, and plainly stated last week, after watching that horrible, disgusting abomination of a joke pay-per-view with the clusterfuck of all clusterfucks in a positive fashion, that I was going to improve my life positively by never watching AEW again, and possibly even never any fucking wrestling again after that. After 8 years, they put me off fucking wrestling. And then, of course, 3 days later, FTR, my only real fucking, them and MJF are my only real guilty pleasures in wrestling anymore. And they debut. I didn't watch it because I wanted to. I will watch their debut at a later date when I'm in a more positive, better mood. But Brian, last I asked you one question: did they make an impact with their presence on this program that you would think that a top team would be obviously looking to do, and the promoters should be looking for them to do so?
I don't know. I think it's not something that's apparent right off the bat, which I think a big Impact debut probably would do. Time will tell. I would have done it a little differently, I think. But I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are talking about it, so maybe it has made an impact.
Because they're happy that somebody actually competent went there, I'm sure. But I get the idea by your tepid response but here's the thing. When I asked a question, did they make an impact? And your response was not a full-throated endorsement. How does anybody make an impact anymore? With what they have done to change professional wrestling into whatever it is that they're fucking doing these days, how do you make an impact? We have seen people thrown off buildings. Of course, we also see people take bumps off, fucking high precipices straight onto unhidden crash pads, like just a fucking bungee jump at the county fair. But we've seen people run over by vehicles, golf carts, trucks. We've seen people bashed with baseball bats, and we've seen people drowned in swimming pools, and we've seen every fashion and form of punishment or assault that the human body can undergo has been portrayed in some form or another just in the last 6 weeks on AEW television alone, has it not?
Yeah, it has.
And then when you take into account that the WWE has 3 shows weekly and their pay-per-view included, as all the various antics that they endorsed in Titan Tower and diving off balconies and fucking throwing people through walls and whatever, all the fucking comedy bullshit that was, and then off ladders and multiple ladders and ladders across things. And we just had Mike Tyson on the program also. Surprise debuts, are they really a surprise anymore? No, everybody kind of knows. Even if you don't know exactly when, you know pretty much it's going to happen because they are no longer in the other place, and there's only one place anybody could go. So the point is, whether it's the debut of a huge star, surprise out of nowhere, doesn't happen anymore. Is it an unknown talent suddenly coming in that nobody's ever seen and having a classic match and beating the fucking champion? No, doesn't happen anymore. Can't. Everybody knows who everybody is. Is it some violent, incredible fucking bump or move that somebody put on a beloved babyface to get over as a heel with heat? Well, it doesn't really matter because we've seen everybody take everything and they know it's all bullshit anyway. How do you make an impact? Think about this, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to visualize this in your minds. If you can, close your eyes in a positive fashion. Ladies and gentlemen, listening to the sound of my voice now, close your eyes and imagine. Take a deep breath and imagine you are in a world where the human being only takes a shit once a year. You are in a world where only one time a year, 365 days apart, every human being on earth takes a shit just once. That would be it when it happened to you, a fucking traumatic incident that would leave you with an emotional scar. Am I right, Brian? If you only took a shit once a year, would that be something you looked forward to? Or would it be like, holy fuck, what's happening to me?
Well, at least the first few times it would be, what the fuck's happening to me?
All right, well, you'd remember it, right? And I'm sure it'd still be a fucking memorable occasion.
Certainly.
And then to my point, after the first several times, you're like, okay, I'm going to make it. That's the point. I used to do a little, but a little didn't get it, so a little got more and more. You take a shit every day, sometimes twice a day. I know people that take shits 5 times a day. You don't think anything about it. Modern wrestling is like taking a shit. You see everything with no meaning and no repercussions, no rules, obviously contrived, nobody taking it seriously, sound and motion, and then you expect to be able to make an impact with something when you want it to. Anyway, there was in the past, the Rock and Roll Express had not been seen anywhere but the Louisiana Territory until they came to work for Jim Crockett and suddenly showed up on TBS, right? But their first night, and well, in the Memphis territory when they first started, but as a main event level team, they'd been in Mid-South Wrestling, and then they came to work for Crockett, and Dusty wanted to smash him over. And so the first night in, on the syndicated TV in Shelby, North Carolina, this Rock and Roll Express team came in, fucking good-looking guys, but we've never seen them before. Who the fuck are these guys? And they beat 1, 2, 3 flat in the middle of the ring. Ivan and Nikita Koloff, or it was Ivan Koloff and Khrushchev, was the team. But the Russians, the most dominant heel team of the previous year and a half or so in the territory, twice their size, boom, out of nowhere, Cinderella story, and they were over. That's one way to make an impact. Another way to make an impact was Terry Funk at the fucking 1989 WCW paper. What was that? The Music City Showdown, the final Flair Steamboat match where they had the judges. And Funk did the angle, pile driving Flair through the fucking table. Flair has regained the world championship in the fucking classic with Steamboat, and then suddenly out of nowhere, a former champion comes out, demands a fucking title match, and fucking injures Ric Flair. He's out for 6 weeks with a fucking bad neck. He may never wrestle again, blah, blah, blah. That's making an impact. You see fucking Marco fucking Stunted Growth get pile driven through a fucking table now, and he gets back up and he's on offense before the other guy can get back in the ring. So how do you make an impact? How do you start taking that shit just once a year so it means something? You can't anymore because these jolly jokers and their fucking bouncing ball fucking trampoline wrestling backyard bullshit and the attempts to be entertainers, which are anything but entertaining, have made it impossible for anybody to make a fucking impact. As well as the fact that nobody can keep their fucking mouth shut. I appreciate that we didn't know it was exactly going to happen on that particular television program. At least the Revolting Revival, FTR, have some pride in their, goddamn business. I used to think I was the only one that could make a surprise appearance these days. I'm the only one that's done it consistently, but I don't see how you can make an impact in the business these days. I really don't.
Well, let me ask you this. In the time that we watched AEW from their, first television show until you swore off them a week ago, what have been the biggest impact debuts on TV? I was trying to think back to it. I mean, I guess in a way, Jake Roberts coming out there, although they really, at the end of the day, did nothing with it when you really look now at the run of that feud. But that was a big surprise. People couldn't believe it. Cut a good promo, got out. What else? Jeff Cobb, they bungled.
Brian Cage won one of the worst matches I've ever seen. Came out looking like an idiot for just being involved in it. It certainly wasn't anything to brag about when nobody else in the match even took it seriously and made that plain, before he even got there. And then they literally buried him. They buried. Abdullah the Butcher comes out and fucking gets juice on everybody and lays waste to entire ringside. And then they jump on him and fucking put him down on the floor and just build some shit around him with ladders and put a table on top of him. And he stays there for fucking 10 minutes.
You know what was great when I was a kid? I don't know if you were watching at this point because it was before you went up there. But when Monday Night Raw first started, for the first several months, it was actually a great show. And they did a thing where in the Manhattan Center, Shawn and Diesel... Actually, it may have not been Diesel yet. It was just Shawn in the ring being interviewed. And some guy comes out of the crowd looking like a bum. And it was Marty Jannetty. And he pulls back his hood and the place pops because they haven't seen Jannetty since the Royal Rumble since January.
Yeah.
And he challenges Shawn Michaels right there. And they have the match later in the show and he wins the Intercontinental title. And it was like, holy shit, I can't wait to see where they're going to go with this.
You know where all that was coming from, don't you?
Jerry Jarrett?
Jerry Jarrett. That's when the original idea, because once Jarrett got up there, obviously he's talking to Vince about his philosophy, and the comparison that I heard, because I started on Raw in July of 93, right? So this was, a few months into the run.
Yeah, this may have been May or June, yeah.
The point was they wanted it to be, since it was a live show, or Raw meant live or as live to tape as they could get, or anything could happen, they wanted it to be like Memphis TV, where anything could happen, where shit you didn't expect took place. Not that didn't make sense in any universe, but that you didn't expect. Surprises and wildness and going off the fucking set type of thing. And that's, and that's when Vince for a while there was listening. That's another reason why it was kind of comfortable when I first went up there, because Jarrett's here. So this, they won't be booking the Invisible Man. But that was the flavor of what Raw was supposed to be, which then, of course, as soon as, and the WWE production team is great, not Kevin Dunn, but a lot of the people they get to work in the production department are great, but they always wanted to upgrade the production. So once they started upgrading the production of Monday Night Raw to where it was as slick as the rest of the shows, it didn't really have the studio wrestling, anything can happen raw flavor that they'd sold Vince on, but he still kept the fucking name, obviously. But yeah, that was the whole idea. Shit like that would happen, and it was really happening because it was live, or they couldn't do anything about it, and you would get caught up in it. But this is it. Once again, they've done so much. They've taken a shit 5 times a day in the past 27 years. The point where now, what the fuck can you do?
Nitro was really good at that, too, for a while. Like when Scott Hall came out of the audience, you knew Razor Ramon was going to WCW at some point if you were reading the sheets, but still it was like, okay, that's an interesting way to do it.
But the good part is, if you were reading the sheets, was what's such a minute part of the audience at that point, which is why the whole NWO thing worked. When they saw Hall and Nash show up, they thought, the majority of people thought it was Razor and fucking Diesel. They thought that, oh shit, we're going to see it. It's on now. The WWF guys and the NWA, or the WCW guys.
Did you hear anything about the FTR debut? Like, what do you know about it?
Well, I know they walked out, and instead of dropping the Young Bucks on their heads, they dropped a job guy team on their fucking heads and flipped the Young Bucks off. And I don't know how I felt about that. Okay, but here's the problem. Who are they going to beat up that means anything? They don't have any tag teams that mean jack all of shit except for the Young Bucks. And if they beat them up their first night in, well, once they fucking run that program for 6 months, where are they going?
Well, they'll get good matches, and hopefully different kinds of matches out of guys that have shown potential, like Private Party, let's say. But I guess if now they have FTR.
I hope they gave FTR then a bonus for being on the job in-ring trainers.
I hope so too, quite frankly. But
good Lord.
They have them there. Everyone obviously has been waiting for years for FTR versus the Young Bucks, and they're not going to that right away. It wasn't an angle where they showed up and beat the shit out of the Young Bucks and left them bloodied
Well, yeah, and I can understand that, because if that's the angle everybody's been waiting for years, you don't give it to them the first fucking night, especially when you can't even sell tickets. Now, I would have said differently if there was a lot of fans in the audience. If there was a lot of fans in the audience, I think they should have come out during a Young Bucks match and just jumped in the ring and sodomized those two little pricks. Just fucking, in the most violent, disdainful way possible, just emasculated and humiliated them to get some fucking heat. Because those fans, I could see those fucking fans, they probably would have got somebody over the rail. Probably some of the women would have come over the rail. I don't think the male AEW fans have the fucking balls big enough to come over the rail at the FTR, but I bet you some of them girls do. And they would have got somebody coming over the rail or somebody causing a riot, because it would be like almost like me showing up, where they would know that the FTR guys, formerly the Revolt Revival guys, have legitimate disdain for their favorite wrestlers and for them, and for the fucking silly, stupid wrestling that they goddamn like. So I can see them getting legitimate fucking fight and heat. Just if the fans of AEW were any fucking tougher than they really are.
Do you think there's something to be said for introducing them and keeping them apart? Because I think about Midnight Rock and Roll, whether it was in Mid-South, where you guys had that one really good match on TV and then didn't really have anything for a while. And then, of course, I was about to say Mid-Atlantic, but Jim Crockett Promotions, where you guys were kept completely apart for a good period of time. Is there something to be said for that, where everyone's waiting for the match? You didn't do a hot angle building into the match yet. Keep them apart. Don't give everyone the match yet.
Well, yes, but here's the problem with that. It's good in theory, but you have to be able to get get both teams busy and over at the same time to lead to their collision. And I mean, their tag team thing's so fucked up. I mean, the world's greatest wrestling artist and his disinterested alcoholic partner are the tag team champions, because supposedly Road Warrior and Balding Buck are so unselfish, they didn't want to be the champions. If they've got a team like FTR coming in, they should have had the belts so that there could be a bone of contention there, but nobody plans ahead. They don't know how to book, because there's not one booker. There's a bunch of people throwing shit in a fucking hat. But to your question, yes, there's something to be said for that, but the Rock and Roll Express were in return matches with the Russians. They were in main events, and they were defending the title against, as I said, the most dominant heel team in the biggest NWA territory in the world of the previous year. Meanwhile, the Midnight Express had all kinds of fucking teams to get over. Jimmy Valiant and Ronnie Garvin, superstar. We were beating superstar Billy Graham once again, not at the fucking prime of his career. And it wasn't like Billy was a goddamn, technical prodigy at that point. But they were putting us over major names like Ronnie Garvin and superstar Billy Graham and Jimmy Valiant and the Sawyer brothers and all these other fucking teams that they were feeding us to get us over as the new hot heels in the territory. And we, except for a blow-off match on some of those programs or whatever, we were going over almost everybody to get us to that Rock and Roll Express point. They don't have any teams worth a shit or that are over, or both. Some of their teams may be worth a shit, but they're not over. None of their teams are over. So,
well, they're over with their fans, but not as capable tag teams. They're just over as personality. The fans, they're like the best friends, but it's not like beating them gets you anything.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're just all friends. It's not like anybody looks up to the best fucking friends. I can't even say that fucking name is a goddamn joke, but
it's not like anybody. I gotta stop you there. I heard from someone the other day who had never watched AEW and watched it. I forget who said this to me, and they said,
I saw it on Twitter, and they said, I thought that was the nickname you guys came up with.
Yeah, they didn't know.
I watched the show and found out that was their real fucking name. What a bunch of fucking idiots. Tag team of the best friends. But, their fans like them as two of the interchangeable fucking, outlaw fuck knuckles that do spots and moves, but it's not like somebody's going to fucking climb the rail and try to cut you if you fuck them around because they know they're bullshit. They just like to watch them like trained monkeys. Nobody is, and also I'm talking about on a wide mainstream basis over. They don't have any tag teams that you can get any legitimate heat or any legitimate credibility by defeating. Wow. It's amazing. I mean, it can be done in indie wrestling and Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, both under Gabe Sapolsky, under Adam Pearce, under fucking Delirious. The fan base, when you finally gave them an upset, like a guy who had been underneath or in the middle and is coming along and suddenly, has been denied a championship match and then gets one but fails, and finally when he gets that fucking carrot at the end of the stick, the people are like, wow, he earned it. And because he beat whoever beat Samoa Joe got over, whoever beat fucking Eddie Edwards got over, whatever the fuck, then that person got over because of who they beat. But all these people, not only are they jokes and they treat their matches as jokes, but they all beat each other. Except for they've done it right with MJF. He's undefeated. I think they said this year or something. And in singles matches, whatever the fuck. Which is another reason why their ranking system is so stupid, because then it exposes they don't know how to book. A ranking system would be great. It's not that hard to give a guy a great record in a worked sport, but they're not smart enough to do that. So they had fucking pushed guys coming out and 500 fucking winning percentage. You fucking morons. But in a positive fashion... It's just hard, because when you don't make things important and you don't take things seriously, you invite your viewers to feel the same way. And then when they feel that nothing is serious and they don't take anything as important, then when you try to do a sports-based presentation where wins and losses matter, it's hard to get people to say, wow, old Brian Last, he's a top guy because he just beat so-and-so, and we know he's a top guy, and he don't hardly ever lose. Because that situation is not presented, because it's all a fucking mishmash. And that's because everybody now knows that Tony Khan is not the one fucking the dog. Tony Khan is just a prolific head holder. He has given so much power and so much pull to so many of the talents, whether they deserved it or not, and as we have seen, many of them did not, that they're just chiming in with their own shit they want to do, and all he has to do is hold that head and agree, because they're fucking the dog. A lot of dogs are getting fucked, and a lot of head holdings going on.
He seems to enjoy holding that head, but let me ask you one more thing.
Well, he needs to start being the one fucking the dog, because he's paying for it. And the guy paying for it should always be the one that's fucking the dog. He should hire a competent head holder, one that he can depend on. But since the dog fucker has no experience in fornicating with dogs, he's relying on all the other fucking dog fuckers to tell him how to do it. And he's holding that head, thinking that if he watches enough dogs get fucked, he'll get enough experience at it where he can fuck those dogs too. But the problem is that fucking a dog is not as easy as it looks. Well, and if you want to fuck that dog, I guarantee you need some in-the-dog experience. And that's where this particular dog fucker is lacking, because he's trying to fuck the dog, but he has never fucked the dog before, and he has no experience at it.
Well, let's not go crazy.
Will that be on YouTube?
I don't know. We're going to see how that works. I know Tony Khan is sensitive to accusations about sexual activity with dogs based on that previous story. Well, I don't know if you know that. Someone held up a sign at a football game Someone held up a sign at a football game in England that said Tony Khan wanks dogs, and Tony Khan kind of had a little bit of a hissy fit on Twitter about it, and
oh my God,
it was pretty funny. But let me ask you this.
Wait a minute. Let's back up now. Is it worse to wank a dog or fuck a dog? Because if you fuck a dog, you're gratifying yourself, whereas if you're wanking a dog, you're just lowering yourself for his benefit.
Well,
so which ones? Well, I would rather be a dog fucker than a dog wanker, so I don't think Tony should get too upset.
Well, you're accusing him of actually just holding the dog for someone else to fuck him.
Well, this whole thing is metaphorical anyway.
That's right. But
when you said, well, you know about that story, I thought, wait a minute, you're going to tell me that there's a story about Tony Khan
There's a lot of people laugh about it. Just a
lot of people talking about it, but nobody can prove it.
Because then the guy put up the sign and he crossed out like Tony Khan doesn't wank dogs. But anyway,
Well, there was that story from Terry Funk about Billy Bob Thornton wanking the dog.
And apparently that's not true. Apparently that's been confirmed as not actually being Billy Bob Thornton.
But Terry sounded so convinced. Could it have been another guy named Billy Thornton, but just not the Bob?
I don't know, but let me ask you my question.
But Terry Funk swore to me that he saw Billy Bob Thornton wanking a dog. But I guess that wouldn't be the first time that Terry has worked me.
I don't know. What I was going to say is...
Who were we talking about originally wanking
so
this
many
dog?
people thought that the Young Bucks would be the first AEW tag team champions and be the mainstay on top of the tag team division. They have not been the tag team champions yet. Obviously, their elite friends, Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega are the tag team champions. The idea that FTR would come in and beat them and become the tag team champions and now the Young Bucks are chasing them. What do you think of that? The idea that the Young Bucks will finally get the tag titles from FTR as opposed to someone who's already on the roster?
Well, no, it's ridiculous. For one thing, if they don't, why have they done all this with Paige and Olivier if they're not going to split them up?
Oh, no, I think that is the plan. They're going to split them up, yeah.
Well, then why the fuck would they beat either Paige or Olivier if they're going to split them up in any other way except during the split up? Which is the same thing, actually, that happened with the Midnight Express and Mr. Wrestling 2 and Magnum TA for the Mid-South Tag Team title so that then we could have the belt so that the Rock and Roll could chase us. So maybe he did watch Mid-South Wrestling. But it would seem to me, which is probably another reason why they won't do it, is because it's a thing that everybody will figure out that has any knowledge of wrestling. Wait a minute, there's nobody has any knowledge of wrestling psychology anymore, so maybe they won't figure this out. Now I'm telling them though, but no. If they're going to do it in the situation they're in now, then let Paige and Olivier have their fucking split. When and the FTR gets the belts and then the Bucks can chase them. But at the same time, which one of these two fucking idiots, Paige and Olivier, are they going to switch babyface? Because the more that Paige has been a jack-off, lackluster, alcoholic, fucking uninterested partner, the more the people like him. And Olivier's real personality and all that gesticulating and finger pointing and crazy fucking epileptic activity that he goes into, that annoying part of his match, which is all of it. He started people are just realizing he's an annoying, pretentious twat. So which one do you think they need to switch?
I think you can't make Adam Page a heel now because the fans love him. Who doesn't love a friendly drunk on a horse? But I think Olivier is a natural heel because, for me at least, it's very easy to not like him.
Well, there you go.
And I have to think it's the same for other people. So you think they do the split and a tag team title change match? Let's say.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do because they don't know what they're fucking doing, these people. But that would seem to make sense to whereas you don't beat a babyface team that's not going to go into a long program with you and get a rebuttal unless you give them something to do afterwards, such as another adversary or split up with each other and go in a different direction. So that would solve that. And then FTR would have the belts and the Young Bucks could come after them. But at the same point, if they knew that if they knew this was going to happen, it just seems like the best thing because the Young Bucks were the only tag team they signed at the start that had any value whatsoever. I mean, I think they suck, but they have an audience that likes them, and they were the elite. So it seems to me like they should have won the fucking tournament and forget about people saying, oh, they're goddamn being egotistical, because they were the only team you could possibly do anything with on a box office fucking level.
And no one got over better by beating them.
And nobody got over better by beating them.
Elevated by beating them, no.
No, well, because they did it as a fluke, which I pointed out and went through exactly how they could have done it properly, but they didn't. Either they didn't know or they were fucking doing one of those fake jobs, and then I got a lot of people that know them saying they were doing a fake job. But they could have just dominated the previous 9 months. Imagine that. Same team on top for 9 months and just had a few little fits and starts, but mostly beaten everybody. And when they closed themselves up in quarantine in California anyway, so they could have been on top. They could have been the fucking champions. And then here comes the FTR. And now they fuck the fucking baby faces. And now they've stolen something that's belonged to the baby faces. And naturally the baby faces want to get that back. It would have added a little personal fucking animosity to the thing, but nevertheless. But we don't want to talk about animosity today.
But I think that's the long-term plan there. You're going to have FTR and the Young Bucks after Omega and Paige break up, and then I got to figure they're going to put one of those guys in the I got to figure Adam Page will probably get the title at some point, and that'll be the feud, Omega versus Adam Page.
Oh, boy.
Hey,
good luck, Hangman.